We're going to talk today about treatment of schizophrenia. And certainly one significant part, as we're thinking about treatment, comes from the dopamine hypothesis. And remember from the last video that we said that schizophrenia seems to be associated with excesses of dopamine and that antipsychotics seem to decrease dopamine. Let's think about this in terms of positive and negative symptoms. Thorazine, one of the first antipsychotics used, certainly does decrease the positive symptoms associated with schizophrenia. However, Clozaril, which was introduced in the 1990s, late 90s, has been, early 90s, has been much more effective in doing so. Now, positive symptoms seem to be related or are believed to be related to excesses in dopamine. So it's not entirely surprising that Thorazine and Clozaril would be effective in reducing symptoms, relative to this baseline. This is the interesting one. Thorazine produces almost no change in negative symptoms. Some of those lacks of, the alagia, the lack of motivation, the problems with affect. However, Clozaril produces a significant change in number of symptoms across time. This is really exciting and also kind of confusing because, as I said, we believed and still do that the positive symptoms are related to problems with dopamine, but we believed that the negative symptoms were related to loss in brain tissue, leading to that expanded ventricles. And so it's kind of surprising that we can still see, kind of surprising and gratifying that we can still see these changes with Clozaril. One of the things to think about throughout the semester as we're talking about medication is what is a side effect and what is normal. And in this Dilbert cartoon, you see Dilbert and his colleagues, talking about this fatigue, disorientation, memory loss, lack of sex, and is that side effect or is that just normal kinds of behavior that are being attributed to the antidepressant? And that's something to be thinking about as you're thinking about giving medication to a client. The antipsychotics are kind of nasty medications and also miraculous in some ways. I've had people talk to me about how it feels like they're sort of walking through quicksand, that everything is really slowed down. And that's not one of the really nasty side effects of antipsychotics. So there are some extrapyramidal motor kinds of side effects, including a decreased ability to express emotions and tardive dyskinesia. Tardive dyskinesia is irreversible, and so if you're working with this population, you really need to be watching it very carefully, particularly if the person is receiving some of the old school antipsychotics. It can produce convulsive tongue and mouth kinds of movements that are really pretty disfiguring. One of the lovely things about Clozaril is that it doesn't do that. However, there are heart problems that need to be watched fairly carefully. In addition to that sort of feeling like you're walking through quicksand, there's also some grogginess and sedation. And so, there are a lot of reasons then why people may be less than happy about some of the antipsychotics. This is a quote from John Nash, and I have a video posted of him on your D2L site, which I encourage you to watch. It's actually an interview with him and also with his son. His son, at least at the point in time that the video was being taken, was having considerably more problems, although his son also had earned a PhD in mathematics, so at one point had been functioning well. John Nash argues that, it's sort of a mixed bag doing better on medication. That part of what the medication does, as he says, imposes a limit on a person's concept of his relationship to the cosmos. That his style of thinking, and part of what made him great, earning him the Nobel Prize, is not there in the way that he would have liked. So why don't people take their medicine? These are some ideas from HIV in terms of why people don't take it. Think also about why you don't take your medicine, and there are lots of different reasons. You forget, or it just isn't very convenient, or on weekends you just don't remember to take it. Or, for example, the antidepressants, you're not supposed to take them with alcohol. And so some of my clients will stay away from alcohol. There are a lot of different things about this. And to me, it seems kind of surprising that as many people take their medications as prescribed. And I think then what we need to be thinking about is if we have someone on either an antipsychotic or some other kind of medicine, that they're probably not going to be taking their medication as prescribed. And we might want to think with them about what can we do to help you take it better. So some things that seem to help is when, there's this good doctor-patient relationship, or when it costs less. So some medications, particularly for people without health insurance, can be really very, very costly. The more side effects, and as we said, antipsychotics have some really nasty side effects. Side effects interfere with taking it. And the more social support, reminders to take it, or reasons to take it. Let's now think about this from a psychosocial point of view. I don't think that the psychosocial interventions are enough by themselves, but they can be helpful adjuncts to medication. Certainly one piece is psychoed, about medicine, schizophrenia, its symptoms. What is it? Why do you experience symptoms in these particular ways? How can you best take your medicines? Identifying strategies for coping with symptoms more effectively. There's a really interesting site called power2you.org, which is a person empowerment site that identifies a number of things that people can do to deal with or prevent symptoms more effectively. Certainly another piece is some sort of strategy to teach basic skills. Remember, the schizophrenia, at least for males, seems to start late adolescence, early adulthood, during a period when people are learning a lot of important kinds of things, like how to date, how to be in a relationship, how to hold a job, how to write a resume. And so any kind of help with those skills will help people perform better in the community. And often family therapy is very useful. We've talked a little bit about expressed emotion in, as we talked about bipolar disorder, maybe with some of the anxiety disorders. But here's another place where it really is important. And you notice that if people, if you're looking at this, this graph, people who do not, families that do not do anything to address how they handle their emotion, who remain hostile and critical, saying things like, why don't you pick up a book, do a crossword or something, even that's too much trouble. Their family members don't do better. On the other hand, when we teach people to express emotions in a more positive way, you can see that their social functioning increases across time. So low expressed emotion, includes saying things like, whatever she does suits me. I just tend to let it go because I know that when she wants to speak, she'll speak. And I pointed you to the video of Jerry in our first video. And Jerry's mother provides a really nice example of low expressed emotion. You can imagine what it would be like to live with Jerry. And yet, she does it well. Expressed emotion seems to vary with culture. So, Anglo-Americans tend to have a fair amount of expressed emotion, and we tend to be fairly critical and judgmental of other people. That's not so true in other cultures. So again, I want you to think, it's not just, it's not that this is the way it has to be. What can we do to change things? And so part, of what we're going to do with families of people with schizophrenia is help educate them about the disorder and help them build communication skills so that they can be less judgmental and more empathic. Help them find, it doesn't mean saying, oh, I don't care if you never do the dishes, but helping them learn more constructive ways of expressing negative feelings, to teach more effective problem solving, to help them resolve problems and conflicts better. So we've talked about expressed emotions on several occasions throughout the semester. Think about the ways that you express emotion. Is it helpful? And then, if not, what stops you from changing? Knowing that will help you then work with families more effectively. And take care.